Can you hear me?
La carne no funcionaba, ¿verdad? No. Hoy para. Hoy necesitamos porque en mi casa van a hacer una revolución y van a fabricar una construcción. Un grupo de casa se puede fabricar, que no. Y por eso te lo digo, el director necesita. Mi dirección es 296, frente a mi casa. Frente a mi casa. ¿Eh? Un poquito. Más o menos. ¿Por qué? No, más o menos cosas sencillas, entiendo. Porque llevo 55 años aquí y he vendido. Bueno, he vendido joyería. Me he vendido ciertas cosas. Cuando es algo legal, sí, quiero cuando. Cuando es algo legal.
No, yo soy que va dentro de la regulación. Yo soy que va de la regulación de los trabajadores.
Sí. Vamos a ver. Ahí se tiraron varias veces. Yo creo que estaba en plan 8. Antes no me pareció porque mucha gente que venía y se iba. Estaba por poco tiempo. Me parece que estaba en plan 8. A la 6 era. No. A la primera semana. No se va a tener algo interesante.
No, pues sí, no sé en español para continuar.
Ah, bueno, sí, te lo agradezco entonces. Yo vine porque la otra vez que yo vine, hablar con el alcalde de Tuy hace como 3 meses, no había ningún deshabilitado.
Te lo
Hace mucho tiempo para parquear, por eso yo vine más temprano.
Te lo ofrezco por ahora.
Ah, pues.
Cubano. Bueno, yo sé
que
yo soy americano. En el convenio allá. Usted es cubano. Usted es cubano.
Pero yo llevo 55 años en este país. A ver, tiene los mismos. Tiene 30 años, imagínate allá 10 mi ciudad. Siempre quise vivir aquí. Mi familia vivía en la Leyún y ahí compramos casa donde yo elegí a mi familia al lado. Pero ellos han sido muy inteligentes. Se han ido para Tennessee. Porque es una vida muy cara. Para retirar mi magnífica, la vida es mucho más barata. Tengo una tía que vive con 105 años. Yo también con 100 años.
Bueno, me voy a tener que mudar para allá.
En la vida tiene su sazón, pero hay cosas muy malas pasando por ella.
Sí, bueno, la gente manejando. Fíjate cuando
Eso-
fue
eso-
cada 2 días.
Eso lo poquito.
Ajá.
El elemento, la droga y la prostitución.
Bueno, para decir, pero del momento que uno se sabe que para él, claro,
La droga y la prostitución. Yo conozco este conocido de esa ciudad, fabricamos en la casa.
pero hay que
Pero
tratar de lo mismo.
¿Eh?
Hay que poner
Yo sé, me va a decir,
lo que era.
yo bien nacido cuando yo llegué a este país.
No, claro.
Pero es una lástima. Para mí vino había mucho trabajo. Y Clinton hizo una cosa muy buena. Unos enemigos nuestros que me pasaban. De fábrica de soda. Trabaja para trabajar con el año que yo quisiera. Y se culparon todos. Han hecho cosas muy malas la política.
Mi papá vive aquí desde, bueno, eso digo aquí, allá, a cruzar la calle de yo que barato.
¿No?
A cruzar la calle, al yo que barato que está por allá. En toda calle esa es la 8, ¿no? No, espérate. What street is yo que barato? A la 8 de West.
En la 12.
La
En la 12. En la 12 y la 8.
Pero él vivía en un apartamento ahí. Bien.
Cuando yo vine, no estaba hecha la calle de esa. Aquí yo no tenía nada.
Ah, bueno.
Era como un día
Bueno,
en el año 68. Pero la ayuda. Y todo lo que vio una persona muy sana. Le han abierto las puertas a Cuba. Y todo. De todo. Se acostumbraron a robar para poder vivir.
claro.
¿Oíste?
Viene con mandar.
Algo que no hace de enfermera, porque mi hija está muy mal. Y la tiene un problema. Y entonces he tenido, desde enero 15 hasta hace 15 días, una enfermera diaria, dándole las vitaminas de lunes a domingo. Esa gente son por todo el mundo. Muchos eran comunistas, que las han dejado dar, no sé, de que se armó León para que le daban a esa gente. Oye, pero detrás de recibir, que están ganando, porque tengo que un carro, la cosa un ilegal, de actividad ilegal.
Y pero todos los dicen real. Eso lo dicen real.
Esas fueron las que tuvieron en Colombia, en Colombia, en Ecuador, en Venezuela. ¿Oíste? Son todas. Muchas son médicos, pero no le dan para decir ser médico. En algunas ocasiones hay un curso de enfermera para poder trabajar. Claro, porque se dieron cuenta que los 5 años de médico, eso no sirve. Al principio le dieron chance, pero eso no sirve.
¿Cómo se llama usted?
Yolanda Guerra.
Señora Guerra. Bueno, si voy a leer, tengo que estudiar la noticia de arriba.
Sí.
Sería la última página. Que es la. Por si la quiere leer, esa es el que referente al duplex. Que vas a tener de la
Vamos a ver, es buena persona.
Vamos a ver.
Sobre todo, decentes. Decentes. Porque hay una gente viviendo.
¿Cómo tú sabes?
Si digo que como van a saber, si salen a la puerta y llaman a los hombres para que a lo que van a decirle.
Perfecto.
Pero que yo iba a decirlo, porque imagínate, yo dije, ya me paré ahí con el ahí me paré yo a decirle al alcalde lo que nos estaban robando, el alcalde del departamento de agua. Porque nadie se desvía, 10 años sufriendo eso, y el alcalde votó, a los 2 días votó a gente del departamento de agua.
Yo creo que el fabrique el duplex tenía un poco mejor de lo que estaba en la calle que vamos a ver. Y bueno, ya la vida de historia es.
Yo fui de día, yo tengo una ciudad, entonces tienes que ir políticos aquí llamando a los hombres a hacer.
Y es una ciudad familiar. Bueno, vamos a ver.
Por eso le digo, oye, yo soy vendedora, yo soy maestra de lengua, yo soy vendedora. Hice el primer año de psicología cuando llegó el monstruo. Compré a la persona nada más, yo te digo lo que es. Compré nada más. Gate un poquito nada, te digo ya. Hay mucha psicología. Eso me ha servido para mucho. Vendí en las mejores joyerías de Jayalía. Vendí en la carreta, en Libanés. Después vendí en la que estaba en las 4 que era un hombre, después el hombre lo hizo caso uso que eran 7 joyerías. En una tuve 13, en otra tuve 12. Bueno, retirada, y para el lugar. Y allí, ¿cómo me conocieron? Caminé con 64 años, el dueño de Gracia, ¿sabes que tenía que caminar mucho? Tenía 64 años. Y me gané 3 años y todo. Por mucho que llevaban años de experiencia. Pero los niños conocían cuando llegaba. Había estado en la disfruta del estado, en una joyería cerca de Machado, 13 años, llegó con la carrera, 12. Ay, tú estás aquí ahora. Y después me fui a otra molería, y después, con 80 años, me fui a unos amigos que hicieron una segunda galería en la calle 8 de Zahuela, ya con 85 ya. Y se acabó.
Bueno, usted lo hizo muy bien.
Sí, pero se siente.
Felicidades.
Gracias. Vamos a ver si mejoramos allá bien. Después nos vamos a funcionar. Con Carlos Soto trabajé, como 8 años trabajamos juntos en la medida de la 49. Es como un hijo para mi calle. Y la asistente del alcalde también la conozco, Mónica Pérez.
Yeah. I heard you think that was so well. And then for me, and I go to the beach. So, treatment, yeah. Yeah. Really should get it. No.
Esto me pasó a mí antes. Querían hacer ahí, vieron que estaba parte mi esposo, estaba cortando la dieta, y vino un hombre y le dijo que quería hacer una casita. Y mi esposo le firmó, no sabiendo que mi esposo que para él todo el mundo la muere. Cuando recibimos el papel de que yo recibí, quería hacer un edificio de apartamento, que al fin él lo hizo en la 19, todo el edificio de apartamento. Y yo vine para acá a discutir eso. Pero él no sabía, en eso que estaba sentado ahí comisionado. 4 eran clientes míos buenos, claro, de ella.
Pero se fabricó de crisis,
¿Eh?
se fabricó de crisis.
Sí, en la 19 era 13, con 2 edificios. Pero ese día perdió, salí por ahí que bufaba con los abogados. Y después trató, porque engañó a mi marido, me engañó. Eso yo dije, me engañó, delante de ese lo dije. Pero en el exceso que hay, voy yo con mis clientes. Pero yo la clásica, porque todo estaba. Y nos han engañado. Así como una casa y como usted me mandaba la tarjeta, en un edificio de apartamento. Entonces te quita la vista, el aire lo quita. Bueno, ¿qué vaya?
Oh.
But we've nailed down on the Special Olympics team, so that's why.
There she is, the lady of the hour.
Deborah.
Oh, she. Yeah.
Yeah.
Microphones on? Good evening. We on? Good evening. Welcome to the City of Hialeah Planning and Zoning Board meeting for Wednesday, September 6, 2023. Everyone please rise for the invocation of allegiance. Lord, we thank you that you've given us here tonight. Please guide us as we go through these items and allow us to make the right decisions for all those involved. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be seated.
The record should reflect that the Planning and Zoning Director is online via Zoom. All her recommendations were written by her and will be read into the record by members of her staff.
There you go.
Meeting guidelines. The following guidelines apply to today's Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Any person, whether participating via the web platform, telephonic conferencing, or physical presence at City Hall, interested in making comments or posing questions on any item on the agenda may do so during the meeting. Members of the public may hear the meeting live through telephonic conferencing using any telephone or cellular phone service. A smart device or computer are not necessary to participate in the meeting and be joined by phone. All persons participating via the web platform will be muted during the meeting until called upon to be heard. Participation through Zoom requires a computer or smart mobile device with a microphone and web camera. The participant may elect to participate in the meeting using audio only or appear through both audio and video. The video function of all participants appearing through video will be turned off until called upon to be heard. All lobbyists must register with the Planning and Zoning Board prior to item being heard. A maximum of 4 speakers in favor and 4 speakers in opposition will be allowed to address the Planning and Zoning Board on any item. Each speaker's comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Item number 1, roll call. Mr. DePerez,
Here.
Mr. Amon is absent. Mr. Iglesias,
Here.
Mr. Jimenez,
Here.
Mr. Ulloa,
Here.
Mr. Casanova,
Here.
Mrs. Enriquez.
Here.
We have a quorum. Item number 2, approval of Planning and Zoning Board summary agenda of August 23rd, 2023 as submitted.
Motion to approve?
Second that motion.
Motion by Mrs. Enriquez, second by Mr. Casanova. Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez.
Yes.
Mr. DePerez.
Yes.
Item has been approved. Administration of oath to all applicants and anyone who will be speaking before the board on any item.
Everyone that is going to speak in front of us, please stand, raise your right hand. Todas las personas que van a prestar testamento, por favor, pónganse de pie para jurarlos.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth before this board?
Thank you.
A written decision and resolution will be prepared and presented for review to the City Council. The City Council is authorized to affirm with conditions, or override the decisions by resolution. After the resolution is adopted, contact a member of the City Clerk's office to obtain the copy of the final decision and resolution. Upon your receipt of the final decision and resolution, contact the building department to obtain your required building permit. Summary minutes or a copy of the audio file of the proceedings before the Planning and Zoning Board shall be prepared and submitted to the City Council before its hearing. The Planning and Zoning Board recommendations for the following public hearing requests will be heard by the City Council at its scheduled meeting of Tuesday, September 26, 2023. Item number 3, variance permit to allow the construction of a single-family home on a substandard lot having a lot area of 4,763 square feet, where 7,500 square feet are required, and allow lot width of 35 feet where 75 feet are required. Property is located at 5520 East 8th Avenue, Hialeah Zones R1, one family district. Applicant Anthony Delpino.
Delpino? Name and address, please.
Hi, yes, my name is Anthony Delpino. The location that we're here to address is 5520 East 8th Avenue.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
He's going to read it into the record, then we'll open the floor and we'll discuss it.
The property in this application is a substandard vacant lot located at the northwest intersection of Lejeune Road and East 55th Street. The block where the lot is located was originally platted in 1924 with 40 feet wide interior lots and 57 to 58 wide corner lots. At that time, the adjacent right-of-way to the east was 50 feet wide. In 1944, the plat was amended to change the blocks into tracts, with the exception of the adjacent lot to the west of the subject property that remained with its original 40 feet width. In 1954, the plat was again amended with the subject lot width reduced to 35 feet because of right-of-way taking for the development of Lejeune Road that is now 100 feet wide. The condition of the adjacent lot to the west, remaining with its original platting dimensions and taking of the east side of the lot for the development of Lejeune Road, caused the current atypical dimensions of this parcel. At this time, the applicant is before the city with a proposal to develop the lot with a two-story contemporary single-family home in compliance with all setbacks. Because of the lot conditions, he is requesting a variance permit to allow the construction of a house in a substandard lot with an area of 4,763 square feet, where 75 feet is the minimum required, and allow 35 feet lot width, where 75 feet are required. Given that the streets department has evaluated the proposed entry driveway condition and determined that it can be accommodated on East 55th Street with necessary adjustments to be paid by the applicant, and considering that the lot size is not a self-created hardship, and furthermore, that the proposed house will comply with all other zoning regulations, the requested variance shall be approved. Recommendation approval.
Thank you. Comments or questions?
No comments or questions, just, just wanted to ask if this was possible. I don't know if this saying that it was approved, that you're approving, this request, or if there's anything else.
Hasn't been approved, it should be considered for approval.
Okay, understood. The only comments I have is, I think it would be wonderful to build this beautiful two-story home within all the setbacks that we are complying with. The only thing that we're not complying with is the lot size due to the circumstances we've been put under, as you heard. And we'd be designing a wonderful home there. And I've seen other homes nearby that are on the same lot size. So I assume they went through this process as well. And I would just hope that we can appeal to you approving so.
Thank you.
Of course.
Comments or questions from the board?
This is gonna be a single family home?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any more comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience who would like to have a comment or question on this item? Okay, we do have one email here that needs to be read into the record.
All right, I received this email from Timothy Wayne Fisher on Monday, September 4th. And this is how it reads. I object to this property being rezoned to allow a single family home to be here. Due to the location, the property is much less than is required. If this is permitted, it would allow other properties to use this as a reference for putting small houses on substandard properties. Also, it created a community hazard for where any entrance to the property would be located. Any entrance on East 8th Avenue would create a hazard due to backing out into the major road. If trying to back in it would back out traffic traveling south on East 8th Avenue. In the weekend mornings, this area is very congested and people do tend to travel rather fast in all lanes southbound. Any entrance from East 55th Street is minimal due to the property width and that there is a storm drain on the street blocking most of the entrance, barely allowing the entrance of a car. This storm drain can't move as it allows water from East 8th Avenue and 55th Street to drain. Moving or blocking this drain will cause the street corner to flood. Also, trying to park more than one vehicle on an entrance on 55th Street property side would be very difficult due to the angle the vehicle would have to enter due to the storm drain. Vehicles trying to enter and leave 55th Street from the property will create a hazard as cars turning the corner when they have A southbound green light might not see a car backing out on a turn and would make the turn at a speed that wouldn't give them time to stop. Timothy Wayne Fisher, property owner, 770 East 55th Street, Hialeah, Florida, 33013.
Thank you. It's been noted in the record. Do you have any comment or question on that?
Yeah, just Timothy, it just seems he's more concerned with the hazard of our driveway rather than the hazard of people speeding and breaking the law. I don't see it that much of a hazard to have our driveway where we have it located. And of course, when we're in review with the building department, if anything would need to or, you know, zoning review with you guys, if we need to make any changes, we'll be more than happy to do so by following whatever restrictions needed.
Thank you. Is there anyone?
Yes, if I may, it's true, it's a very narrow lot. It's very inconvenient. The entrance on East 8th Avenue is impossible because it's an FDOT road and they would never allow a curb cut there. So I consulted with the streets department. They looked at it. They said that the applicant will need to make certain modifications on the drainage that is there very tightly, but the driveway will fit. So the recommendation is approval because the size of this lot is a real hardship and we have to approve it, but the applicant should acknowledge that any improvement and change of the drainage, any thing that needs to be built in the right of way will need to be paid by the applicant. The city will not pay for those necessary improvements.
Thank you, Deborah. That was the
For the record, that was Deborah Storch,
Deborah
the planning
Storch.
director.
city planner. Do you understand her comments?
I understood, and as I stated, if there's anything that needs to be modified, such as what you require, as long as it's possible and able to be done, we're willing to make those modifications.
Okay. That being said, Deborah, I see you the only one. Is there anyone else in Zoom? No? Close to the part of the public hearing? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve. Second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Iglesias, second by Mr. Casanova. Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez,
Yes,
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez.
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Item number 4. Variance permit to allow the construction of a new duplex on a substandard lot having a total area of 6,750 square feet when 7,500 square feet are required. Allowed a lot width of 50 feet where 75 feet are required, and allow street side setback of 10 feet where 15 feet are required. Property is located at 302 East 17th Street, Hialeah, zoned R2, 1 and 2 Family Residential District. Applicant, Veloz Family Investments, LLC.
Name and address, please. Nombre y dirección.
Rogelio Veloz, 614 East 51st Street.
Thank you, sir.
The property in this application is a corner lot located at the southeast intersection of East 3rd Ave and East 17th Street. The property is zoned R2 and is developed with a single-family house built in 1950. The applicant is before the city with a proposal to redevelop the property with a new 2-story duplex. Although a lot size variance is requested for the lot size, it is not needed since the lot was legally subdivided with the current dimensions before 1974. The owner and its predecessors entitled did not own an adjacent parcel, and more than 50% of the parcel in the block has lots of similar area. Accordingly, the only variance request is to allow a 10 feet street side setback where 15 feet are required. The proposed 2-story contemporary building takes advantage of the corner location, providing access and parking for one of the units on East 3rd Avenue and the other one fronting East 17th Street. This configuration activates the East 3rd Avenue frontage that is now blocked with a solid fence. The requested reduced setback could be approved with the condition that the East 3rd Avenue frontage remains landscaped, and if a fence is built in the future, it should be 75% transparent, not solid. In all, the proposed redevelopment of the property is an enhancement for the area and shall be approved. Recommendation approval.
Thank you, Chris. You understand the recommendation?
Yes, sir.
You understand the suggested conditions?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience?
Wait, she's not gonna say anything.
This is part of the public hearing. It's a pleasure.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Iglesias, second by Mrs. Rica. Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Henricez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
item has been approved.
Aquí, por favor. Póngase aquí, por favor,
En el micrófono.
en el micrófono.
Una familia. Es lo que yo quisiera.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Mr. Chairman, you've closed the public portion of the hearing.
Right.
She doesn't have a right to speak anymore. We can reopen it, but I think that would require possibly a revote.
Right.
The opportunity has been missed to speak on this item unless it's been reopened.
Correct. Okay. ¿Inglés o español?
Ya más o menos.
Ok, momentito. Déjeme clarificarle algo. Este caso ha sido cerrado ya. Yo ofrecí comentarios del público, ofrecí comentarios electrónicos. Ok.
Yo vine según me citaron para.
Ok, perdón. Usted o no entendió o no respondió cuando tuvo su oportunidad.
No,
Perdón,
recibí
perdón.
un papel, una carta.
Perdón, por favor.
Una tarjeta.
Tranquila. Ok, usted no respondió cuando se le dio la oportunidad. Este caso está cerrado, ya se votó en este caso. Ahora, la única opción para poder oír su opinión o su comentario es si la Junta permite que se vuelva a abrir este caso para oír su comentario. Si la Junta no está de acuerdo en reabrir esta aplicación, lo siento, pero no se lo puede oír a usted.
Yo estoy de acuerdo porque hablé con la señora y me dijo que era una familia. Hay habido movimientos raros.
Ok.
Meses atrás.
Señora, por favor. Ok. Déjeme hacer mi trabajo. Okay. ¿Usted quiere opinar sobre este caso o no?
Yo me dejé guiar por la señora. Me dijo que
Señora,
era una familia,
sí,
que estaba viviendo.
señora.
De lo
Sí
contrario,
o no.
veremos cómo se presenta después.
Sí o no. ¿Quiere opinar? Sí o no.
No me interesa opinar.
Ok,
Veré
gracias.
En el futuro.
Ok,
En el futuro.
este caso
Si es
está
así,
cerrado.
si es así.
Este caso está cerrado.
There needs to be clarity on the
Okay.
record, so that should be translated into
Okay.
English.
The young lady was trying to make a public comment, okay, on this item. The public comment section of this item was closed, was open, was offered. Even the electronic part of the comments were open and offered, and they were closed. She basically either missed the opportunity or did not bother to speak up in a timely manner. An option was given to her that a notification was given to her that the item had been voted on and has been closed. It was given an option was given to her that if the board decides to reconsider reopening this item to hear her comment, it is up to the board. They can motion and vote to reopen it. Upon asking her if she was interested in making a comment, she said she didn't care. So at that point, the item has been voted on, item is closed, and it's a done deal.
Through the
We
chair,
move on to the next item.
through the chair.
Thank you very much.
Given that she doesn't speak English and just for fairness, I would motion to reopen.
She says she doesn't want to talk about it.
I understand, but it's probably the emotions that she feels that she hasn't been heard. She doesn't understand the process. She already came all the way over here and on technicality, just for fairness sake, I mean, I would like to,
Motion, and you get a second?
I would like to hear what she's.
If you want a motion, we get a second, we'll reopen it.
I second.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Jimenez, second by Mrs. Enriquez. Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Ms. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Mr. Casanova. Mr. Ulloa. Mr. Di Perez.
No.
We got a tie.
The motion fails because there's no majority.
So motion fails, so. Unless you want to throw out, someone wants to throw out another motion?
Can she go to the council meeting? Thank you. Can
Oh,
she go?
absolutely.
Should you explain that to her? Maybe she can give her opinion there.
Okay. En este momento, el señor Jiménez propuso reabrir la aplicación. Ok, ok.
Yo estuve con el alcalde cuando veces aquí hablando de eso.
Ok, señora, desde ahí usted no puede hablar, por favor. Si usted va a hablar, necesita registrarse aquí en el micrófono para que sea parte del récord. Ok, si usted no está interesada en prestar su opinión, entonces, ya. Él propuso reconsiderar el voto. Ok, y el voto falló. Lo que quiere decir que ya este caso está cerrado. Ok. For the record, Mr. Jimenez, motion to reconsider. It was seconded, but the end result was, since we don't have a majority, we're missing one board member, it was a tie, which means that the motion failed. So as it stands, the decision carries, basically, though it wasn't approved to begin with. Right, Alex?
That's correct. I mean, technically, if she would like to wait for the end of the meeting, when we discuss new business or old business, if she would have input regarding old business, I think we could give her 3 minutes if she would like to wait. But as it stands, this item is closed.
Okay. ¿Entendió? Okay, so,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Have a good night.
For the record, she said she understood what I
She
said,
understood,
and
yes.
if she wants, she can wait.
She can, yes, absolutely.
Item number 5. Variance permit to allow 48 parking spaces where 93 parking spaces are required. On an existing industrial building where 76,505 square feet will remain for industrial use and 3,140 square feet will be repurposed for commercial use. Special use permit to allow the use of a 3,140 square feet bay as a clinical investigational research facility operating 24 hours and 7 days a week with a maximum of 12 patients per day and 8 staff members. Properties located at 2300 West 8th Avenue, Hialeah Zoned M1 Industrial District. Applicant Cesar Mestre Esquire.
Thank you.
Good evening, Cesar Mestre with offices at 8105 Northwest 155th Street, Miami Lakes, Florida.
Thank you.
The property in this application is a 76,505 square feet industrial building that occupies an entire block except for 4 lots facing West 8th Avenue. The property is improved with an industrial building that was built in 1969. The site was recently reconfigured to the original configuration after Telemundo left a site that occupied as a tenant for a long period of time. The applicant is before the city with a proposal to use a 3,140 square feet bay within the 76,505 square feet building as a research facility. This is a non-conforming building approved with only 48 parking spaces, while current parking regulations would require 77 parking spaces for industrial uses and 93 parking spaces with the proposed 3,140 square feet for commercial use and the remainder for industrial use. Under the current parking count, the atonement for the 3,140 square feet bay is 2 parking spaces, while the current parking requirement is 16 parking spaces. The other 13 bays in the building currently have industrial uses. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow a clinical investigational facility to operate 24 hours, 7 days a week, with a maximum of 12 patients per day and 8 staff members. Letter of intent submitted by the applicant states that many patients are transported by rideshare paid by the pharmaceutical companies involved in the research, while many use their own vehicles. Since this statement is vague, the assumption is that the parking demand will be around 12 parking spaces under the best scenario. The reduced parking is an existing condition and is a hardship for the legally approved industrial building that has 38% less parking than required. Accordingly, a parking variance to allow 48 parking spaces where 77 parking spaces are required shall be approved. As for the increased variance to allow 48 parking spaces where 93 are required, 48% less parking than required. It is a self-created hardship that results from the incorporation of commercial use into a building conceived for industrial uses. Given that the 14 bays are owned and managed by a single owner, the only way this parking deficit could work is if 13 bays are allocated 2 parking spaces each. Unit 1, the research facility subject of this application, gets allocated 16 parking spaces and 6 spaces remain open for ADA parking spaces and overflow. This parking allocation shall be recorded in a declaration of restrictions limiting all bays to industrial uses and allowing only unit 1 to have the proposed commercial use as a research facility. With this condition on parking allocation in place, the special use permit to allow a research facility on unit 1 could be approved, limiting the operation to 8 employees and no more than 12 patients per day. Recommendation: approval subject to conditions to be recorded in a declaration of restrictions.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. With me today is the building owner, Mr. Mark Slansky, who's here. Also, the business owners, Niurka Borrero and Osvaldo Sardui, are here. This is a small, successful family business that was started back in 2015. They first started off at 650 Palm Avenue, right down the block. Then a couple of years later, they had to move to 1015 East 4th Avenue. And now they're looking to move to 2300 West 8th Avenue with 3,100 square feet. Their business is pharmaceutical research, where the pharmaceutical companies have trials for medications that haven't been approved yet, and they do those trials there. Right now, their business operates from Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. But there's a new phase, that's where they're moving, that they want to incorporate into their business, which is where the folks actually stay for a longer period of time. And that's why they're saying that eventually they'll get to 24 hours, 7 days a week. The building, the presentation, the building that we're talking about is located on West 8th Avenue. It's the entire block, as staff told you. Next slide. It's directly across the street from the fire station that's there. And there's just a couple of houses down the block. If you go to slide number 5, you can see the next one, that one. That there's really not that much space around this huge warehouse, which is 76,505 square feet. The little circle that you see on the tip, which is the southeast corner, that's the unit that my client, QA Research, wants to get the approval for. Next slide. These are all the bays that exist there. And again, where the circle is the only space that my client will be incorporating. The next slide shows the letter of intent that was prepared by my client, which tells you that they see roughly 10 to 12 patients per day, and they have 8 staff that work the business, and that the normal time for each patient is 30 to 45 minutes. Now that will change in the future when they go to do phase 1, which will make the patient stay a little longer. Also, the great majority, when I asked my client, what percentage, you told me 95% of the people that come in, the patients, come in with ride sharing, provided by the pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies obviously don't want these folks driving around, so they provide this. And as a matter of fact, he brought with him some of the receipts that they keep for the ride sharing. They keep log of that with them at their place. So the great majority do not. But in any event, the next slide will show you what they are proposing to do with that one unit. And basically, it's going to have a couple of doctors' offices, a couple of nurses' offices, and a big space for gentlemen and a big space for women. That's all they're going to do there. Luckily, the owner of this building, and as staff said before, this is the building where Univision was for many years. And we all remember that that was kind of seemed like it didn't fit there, right? But luckily, the owner has looked at this and has agreed, and we will be preparing and we'll be proffering a declaration of restrictions that says they have 48 spaces. So my client, QOA Research, will be assigned 16 of those spaces so that there's not a problem with the patients and there's not a problem for staff. There will be 6 spaces that will remain open for accessibility disabled parking. And then the other units will have 2 parking spaces each, which I guess was the original way that these industrial sites were developed. You would have a big warehouse, a tiny little office, and 2 spaces in the front. So that is what we will be proffering with the declaration. And they are here if you have any further questions, but we would respectfully ask that you recommend approval.
Thank you. Comments or questions?
Through the chair.
Good.
The 48 spaces, those are all along 8th Avenue.
I believe it's in different sides of they're on the different sides. There's some on the north side, there's some on the south side, there's some on the east side, there's some on the west side.
So it's the perimeter of the entire building.
Correct. Right.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with the spaces across the street on behind the fire station.
Okay. That lot happens to be owned by the same owner, but we are not taking those into account today for
Right.
purposes.
I
of
only know
this.
because I live by there, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
That in order to use it as proper parking, it needs to be improved. So that's why we're not mentioning it or using it there at this time.
And the variance is for the entire building, not just bay 1, right?
The variance is for the entire building to satisfy parking requirements for
Bay 1.
industrial, except for commercial, which will be Bay 1.
Thank you.
Now, the application consists of just the one corner where the circle was. That's
The special use permit that we're asking you for is for only that unit. The parking variance of 48 instead of the other number is for the entire building. So it's
But-
2.
right, but they're only going to rent, if you will, or operate out of that one corner of the building, not the entire building.
Correct. My client's going to operate only out of unit number 1.
Okay. Any more comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience? Okay, no more comments, questions heard. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second that motion
With conditions?
With
with conditions.
Motion by Mr. Iglesias, second by Mr. Jimenez. Was it the other way around? I'm so sorry. Motion by Mr. Jimenez, second by Mr. Iglesias. Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Item has been approved with conditions.
Thank you.
Caesar, you'll prepare a DOR for me?
I will have that draft to you next week.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Item number 6. Repeal and rescind City of Hialeah, Florida ordinance 2021-008. Special use permit to allow the expansion of the neighborhood business district overlay. Variance permit to allow 100% of the units with an area of less than 850 square feet where 850 square feet is the minimum area required, and only 10% of the units can have an area of 600 square feet. Allowed 7.5 feet rear setback where 15 feet are required. Allowed 2.5 feet interior side setback where 15 feet are required. And allowed 25 parking spaces where 37 parking spaces are required. Property is located at 90 East 21st Street, Hialeah Zone, CBD, Central Business District. Applicant Hugo P. Arza Esquire on behalf of East 21st Street LLC.
Thank you.
Hugo Arza, 701 Brickell Avenue, representing the applicant.
The property in this application is a vacant parcel located at the southwest intersection of East 21st Street and East First Avenue, across the street from Hialeah Metro Rail Station. The property was granted a special use permit and variances in 2021, Ordinance 2021-008, in relation to a development proposal, including a mixed-use building fronting East First Street, complementing a larger multifamily building that is under construction across the street on East First Avenue. Said proposal included a layout with the building adjacent to the sidewalk fronting East First Street, with commercial space on the entire first floor and parking at the rear with entrance on East 21st Street. During the concurrency and site plan review process, the proposal was reviewed by FDOT, who denied the entrance on East 21st Street for its proximity to the corner. Accordingly, the applicant had to change the plans, move the building towards the west, and relocate the parking fronting East First Avenue. The new configuration includes a commercial space fronting East 21st Street, enhanced with a paved area at the front and east sides, so as to enliven the commercial area, providing an outdoor space and create a connection with the multifamily building on the adjacent block to the east. The remainder of the first floor will now have 2 one-bedroom units and 1 one-bedroom unit. Floors second through fourth will have 2 two-bedroom units and 2 one-bedroom units each. The proposed total number of units is 15, and the commercial space will have 615 square feet. The access and corridors on the top floors will be located towards the west of the site, and balconies will front the parking lot. A horizontal modern aluminum fence is proposed along the perimeter of the parking lot facing the street for the purpose of screening the parking lot. Bollards and planters are proposed at the property line on East 21st Street, protecting the open space adjacent to the commercial area. To improve the property under the new proposal, the special use permit to allow the expansion of the MBD is still needed. Also, variances are needed to allow 100% of the units with an area less than 850 square feet, where 850 square feet is the minimum required, and only 10% of the units may have an area of 600 square feet. 7.5 feet rear setback where 15 feet are required, 2.5 interior side setback for open corridors above the ground floor where 15 feet are required, and allow 25 parking spaces where 37 spaces are required. The required landscape buffer along the front will also be reduced to 2.5 feet where 7 feet are required. Given that this new configuration results from hardship, the special use permit and unit size variances could be approved as they were approved by Ordinance 2021-008. The reduced interior side setback is adjacent to a multifamily building that has an institutional use assisted living facility. So this reduction will not be impactful. The rear setback request is for the staircase and storage on the first floor. Given that the rest of the building is stepped back in compliance with the required setback, and the reduced landscape buffer fronting the street will be mitigated by the proposed decorative fence. Accordingly, the setbacks reduction may be approved. As for the parking, 25 parking spaces will allow for 1 parking space for each of the 15 units, 3 parking spaces for commercial use, 1 accessible space open, and 6 spaces open to be managed by the building's management for visitors or to be assigned to particular units during the night. Although parking is scarce, the location across the street from the particular units, although parking is scarce, the location across the street from the Metro Rail Station will encourage residents to use the service and decrease parking demand. The Metro Rail Station is also served by the city's circulator, freebie, and metro buses. The applicant is also proposing to build 2 parallel parking spaces along East First Avenue. However, it should be a condition that a curb and gutter be proposed, so they should plan to raise and or build or rebuild the sidewalk as necessary. It was observed in several other projects by the same developer that sidewalk and parallel parking spaces were built without providing curb and gutter, creating a configuration where cars park encroaching into a sidewalk and creating a situation that is favorable for back out parking, which is not allowed or acceptable. In addition, this faulty parallel parking improvement does not follow the streets department standards, and its construction did not get streets department approval. The parking variance could be approved, subject to the construction of street improvements in compliance with standards required by the streets department. Recommendation approved with conditions.
Thank you, Chris.
Good evening again, Hugo Garza, 701 Brickell Avenue. I'm torn this evening between giving a 2-hour presentation to keep Mr. Lasarte from going to dinner or being very brief so that Mr. Jimenez can go home with his son, who I'm sure does not want to be here any longer. So I think I'm going to opt for sending him home earlier.
Motion to approve.
Thank you to Deborah and the team for the recommendation. I've got a brief presentation and I want to just highlight a couple of things, but really just start out. So this board unanimously approved the larger project back in 2021, and then the council unanimously approved. And I'm going to show you, if we go to the next slide, or as we will go through the slides, this is the corner piece. So if you see across the street, you see what looks like vacant today. And this parcel is about 1/3 of an acre. Next slide. Current use obviously is just fenced out. It's still vacant. Next. Here is the overall project. And I'm going to show you pictures in a minute. The very much larger parcel on the east side of our property and also directly abutting the Metro Rail station has been basically finished. The COs should be in hand by the end of the year. And I'll show you pictures of the construction progress. As the report alluded to, and as I think you heard earlier today with one of the other applications, FDOT, after going through the approval process at the city on the zoning side, when we got the site plan and concurrency, FDOT denied the ability to access this particular 0.31 acre site from 21st Street, which is an FDOT road. As a result of that, we had to accommodate and shift the building around in order to actually be able to access the site. So our entrance now will be on First Avenue, which is going to be even with the entrance to the other projects. So First Avenue was already, obviously going to be impacted one way or the other. Next slide. These are the application requests, and you heard all of them. In fact, the parking variance previously approved was for one more, we had one more need and the same number of parking spaces. So in fact, the site plan you have here today has the same 25 spaces we offered the first time. Last time we needed 38 parking spaces. This time we need 37. The principal reason for that is that we had to reduce the commercial, because by shifting the building to the south, the commercial just wasn't going to front 21st Street. It just, we kept 600 and some odd feet of commercial. We want it to work. And we took the opportunity to build and do some pavers and create a welcoming environment. But, once you put commercial into and away from the street, it struggles. And so we reduced the amount of commercial. As a result of that, commercial generates a greater parking need. So as a result, even though we're providing the same number of spaces, our parking variance actually gets a little less intense in this request because we have less commercial. Next slide. Here's the proposed site plan. So you see the sort of that top gray area, that's the pavered improved area that will provide for, the ability for there to be sort of a little separation from 21st Street. And then the entrance is on First Avenue. And before I forget, we accept the conditions, and I've reached out to my client to talk about the other locations that might not have had curb and gutter. Obviously we'll get back to Deborah on that issue. I only was made aware of it when I read the recommendation late yesterday, but we'll work with her. But we have no objection to there being a condition for this approval requiring the curb and gutter. That is in fact what the streets department and the city requires. Next slide. I'm going to skip project highlights because obviously this is a project that's pretty built. I want to get to the next. There we go. So that is actually that vacant parcel you saw on the east side of First Avenue. That's what's there today. So that was part of this approval in 2021, and here towards the end of 2023, those buildings should be finished out. And those units should be occupied, I'm being told probably by the end of the year, if not the beginning of next year. So the project is more than well underway. The site plan and concurrency started at the same time and the FDOT issue arose. We tried fixing it for months, trying to see if FDOT would grant us what they call a waiver to allow us to enter on 21st Street. We eventually threw our hands up in the air. They weren't going to do it. And we came back to you for this process. And so I think that's the last slide, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So again, if it seems familiar, it's because it is. This is the smaller piece of a larger project that the city approved unanimously at every step of the way. It's across the street from the Metro Rail station. Let me not forget that. I mean, without it being one of the TOD district areas on the east side of the city, there is no site closer to a Metro Rail station, I don't think, in the city than this one, which is directly across the street. So we do anticipate that as folks are looking for a place to rent, someone that might have need to use Metro Rail may be more inclined to live here, thus, I think, also helping us. And I think that was the argument in 2021 and continues to be the same strong argument today. So want to thank staff for their recommendation and wish Deborah safe travels. And I'm here to happy to answer any questions, and I would ask for your recommendation of approval to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arza. I see one thing missing from this application. Thank you, Mr. Arza. I do see one thing missing. From this
What is that?
application. So you were gonna have build a Pollo Tropical there.
At one point, that was
At one point.
before, but not, I didn't ever do an application for a Pollo Tropical there. When we got this one approved, that, I mean, came off the table from a previous,
Right.
somebody else had tried to get something approved there. You're right.
That was
Yeah.
Caesar.
Huh?
Caesar.
Was it
Caesar just left. That was Caesar. Caesar couldn't get that Pollo Tropical approved.
Oh,
and
okay. All
He
right.
left it to me to get this approved. Now, what can I say?
I know it was this particular parcel
Oh.
that had, I'm sorry, I forgot whether it was you.
No, it's okay.
But
I can imagine how difficult it would have been to put a Pollo Tropical here, because if they didn't want a dozen or 15 residents coming in a couple times a day, could you imagine FDOT not wanting the steady stream of traffic that Pollo Tropical brings? So I'm not surprised that they wouldn't have allowed it back then. But we're happy. We want to just try, and we're not going to catch up. I mean, that
Yeah.
obviously the east part is going to open much sooner.
You know,
But yeah, it was. You reminded me. I didn't work on that one, but I do remember the first time around
Right.
that we had to explain, no, the Pollo Tropical did not go there. This is new. So
just some food for thought.
literally.
Any comments or questions?
Through the chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm a little confused. So you want to repeal and rescind the special use permit?
Yes, and so, and I think Alex can probably speak to that more clearly. I mean, we just thought it was cleaner to just kind of, start from scratch rather than trying to amend what was previously approved, although the requests are fundamentally similar. I don't know, Alex, if you've got a better explanation for that.
It's the same request. Like he said, this just does it in a better, more succinct way to repeal the original one and, reissue a new special use permit. I agree that this is the way to go.
And get a variance for.
Right,
the
and when we had secured variances the last time too, so the requests are all fundamentally similar, but rather than amending a prior site plan and ordinance in consultations with the city attorney's office, it was deemed cleaner, and it would be. I mean, now no one has to look at that old one at all. They can just look at this one. It makes sense.
Okay. Thank you. Any more comments or questions?
I do. What's the commercial part of it? What are you planning to put there?
It's,
Like a store, or is there like?
yeah,
a
I mean,
gas station?
I think that usually a place like this, I mean, we always talked about there being a potential for like a small little place to grab something to, eat, like on the way to the Metro Rail station, or especially on the way to, like a little coffee shop in the morning, right before you get on.
Bakery.
A little bakery, 600 feet is sufficient for something small like that. I think that's going to be the target, but we don't have it leased out yet. I mean, unfortunately, since it's not built, it's hard to really talk to tenants concretely. But I think what makes sense would be something that supports the fact that there are people in the area. And if they're going to wait at the Metro Rail station, they may go get the cup of coffee or stop by there on the way up. So I think we'll target something like that.
I ask because I believe it just says 3 parking spaces for that commercial.
That's the requirement.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the requirement. But again, I think that I don't think it's going to be a destination location. I
Right.
think it's going to hopefully support the folks that are already going to be across the street. And the report mentioned Freebie, the bus, the city circulator. I mean, because they bring them all to the Metro Rail station. So they actually have a pretty good app. I had to take Metro Rail quite a bit earlier this year. And you can actually, they actually do this well. I don't say the county does things well very often, but I will tell them that they do it with the timing of the trains. They're actually pretty good. So if you've got 10 or 15 minutes to your train is coming, you know, you're gonna go grab a cup of coffee or something like that. I think you're gonna get walking and foot traffic. I don't think anybody's gonna drive and look to park there and keep going. It's not likely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience? I see that Deborah changed her background there. She came inside. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. There you
No,
are.
I was saying yes, I came inside and I am very happy that the Pollo Tropical is not going there, but was not going to be there. Was going to be on the other lot, on the bigger lot where.
Oh, it was gonna be in the bigger lot?
apartments are already built. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you do remember that. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Anyone else? All right, closes the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second that motion
With condition.
Yes.
with conditions.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Jimenez. Second by Mr. Iglesias. Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Item has been approved with conditions.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Miscellaneous item not requiring advertised. Item number 7, tentative plat of Booz Ol.
Booz Ol.
Motion
This
to
is the
adjourn.
plat for the consolidation of lots. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
This is the plat for the consolidation of lots for the Navarro project on Okeechobee Road and Lejeune Road. Giselle, I don't know if you have there the comments from the different departments.
Yeah, Chris has them. He's gonna read it into the record.
Yeah. Okay, so if you want to read them, this is only the tentative plat. So the applicant will address the comments and will come back after they go to a county with a final plot, and we will have the opportunity to review it again.
So this is the one with the Navarro in the corner with a big cafetera, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Comments from Plat Committee. So Department of Water and Sewer. Existing water and sewer utilities are shown in the T plat. Sanitary sewer flow goes to PS 04-002 in okay status. Any partial closures of Park Drive will require an easement agreement between the city of Hialeah and the developer to protect the existing 16-foot water main going along Park Drive running northbound, and then an existing 8-foot VCP gravity sewer main running in the middle of Park Drive. Points of connection meeting required with the EOR for the proposed development. If there is a change of use, approval is required from the City of Hialeah Department of Public Works and Durham. As per the fire department, there's no objections. As per the police department, there's no objections. The streets division, the first one is per the proposed T plat document, the lot 4 dedication area should be labeled as dedication for public land use, not public right of way. There should be a distinction between, because if labeled as right of way, then the city will have to allow utilities to install infrastructure. And that's not something that the city intends to allow to happen at this location. Number 2 says, please add a note in detail to the plat for the proposed public utility easement outlined in the T plat, which is the same area as the portion of Park Drive right of way to be vacated by plat containing approximate 6,245 square feet labeled as follows. And I quote, the portion of Park Drive right of way to be vacated by plat containing approximate 6,425 square feet shall be reserved for the installation, maintenance, and operation of any utility now located or to be located in the area or portions thereof vacated by this plat, including the right of the utility to install, maintain, operate, repair, and replace any poles, wires, conduits, sewer mains, water mains, storm sewer, or other facility or equipment for the maintenance or operation of any utility. And then number 3 says, the portion of Park Drive, Hiawatha Drive, that will remain as public right of way is to be maintained by the developer associated with the proposed T-plat. Please label add details to the plat, noting that the current property owner and or any subsequent owner will maintain said portion of Park Drive, Hiawatha Drive perpetually. Parks and Recreation has no objection. Planning Unit, no objections.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Felix Usarte with offices at 3250 Northeast First Avenue. We'll take all of staff's recommendations and incorporate them into the T-plat as this travels over to the county for approval at Miami-Dade County, and then it'll come back for final approval as a plat in the city of Hialeah.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Anyone in the audience have a question in the item? Anyone in the electronic item? No electronic audience. Let's call the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve. Second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Iglesias, second by Mr. Casanova. Mr. Di Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias.
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez.
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa.
Yes.
Mr. Casanova.
Yes.
Item has been approved, subject to comments.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 8, old business. No old business. Item number 9, new business. Okay,
No new business?
no new business.
All right. So that being said, then meeting's adjourned.